93 FM WBAP. Well, the news is not very fun today. We're going to start with the terrible story over the weekend. There was another trucker who, air quotes, fell asleep, ran up behind, it seemed like without hitting the brakes or even trying to stop, and ended up 5 people dead. Now, this sounds just like what happened back in, I think it was March, wasn't it? Right outside of Austin. There was another similar incident where a guy driving a big rig, tractor trailer, just mows into the back of some people. 5 people ended up dead back then about 3 or so months ago, including a 4-year-old and an infant. So there's a lot of questions that pop up. Before we start talking about the controversial stuff, because, you know, when we talk about who did it, when I play you the report here, let me know if they give you the identifiers on this guy, on his, I don't know, immigration status, or maybe his race, or maybe some things that are the most important thing in the world in some of these other stories. But it doesn't come up here, which should make you suspicious. So let's get the first story, the official story, and then we can start talking about the rest of the story.
Now to new developments in a tragic story in Kaufman County. The truck driver accused of falling asleep at the wheel and causing a crash that killed 5 people on Interstate 20 east of Dallas is now charged with manslaughter. The Department of Public Safety says 27-year-old Alexis Asmani Gonzalez Campagnoni was driving the semi that plowed into a Ford F-150 Saturday. That F-150 was stopped in traffic on I-20. 5 people were inside of it. 4 of them died. 1 has critical injuries. The initial crash caused a chain reaction that involved 2 other semis and multiple cars. The 5th fatality was in a separate vehicle. Here is some of the audio from an emergency dispatcher.
An accident major westbound 20 at mile marker 510. We've gotten multiple calls about it. Major 4 or 5 vehicles, at least 2 18-wheelers, injuries, roadway blockage. We haven't got a person that was actually involved on the phone. All were passerbys, and all they have is 2 18-wheelers and 4 or 5 vehicles. A white Mustang, and they're not moving, not breathing.
DPS troopers have not yet released the identities of the victims. Parts of the interstate were closed for up to 7 hours.
Do you have no interest in the identity of the guy who did it? No? Doesn't matter in this one. We got to hear it so many times when it comes to other stories, but in this one, no concern. It's interesting. So the internet sleuths have been doing their job. Went online, got the arrest report for Alexis Asmani Gonzalez Campagnoni, 27 years old. A couple things we know about him. He's kind of big. This doesn't really factor into the story much, but he's a weird looking guy. He's 5'8". He's listed at 308 pounds, but I think that's a generous number. He's incredibly big. Again, has nothing to do with the story, because the guy that, you know, ran and killed 5 people in Austin 3 months ago, he was a skinny fella. So that's not the pattern we're looking at here. But in reporting from a friend of the show, Sarah Fields from Forever Freedom, she says the initial police report said that he did not speak English. Oh. Now, does that mean he's an immigrant? No. Does that mean he's an illegal immigrant? No. No. But that starts piling up the evidence that maybe he is. And you're not surprised by the absolute lack of intellectual curiosity by the people reporting it here. They're like, we didn't get any further description on the victims. Yeah, but what about the guy driving the truck? Because in the middle of the afternoon, a guy falling asleep at the wheel doesn't seem like the more likely scenario. Seems maybe he was impaired. Had he been drinking? Had he been doing pills? The Ethiopian who was behind the wheel of the fatal accident that happened outside of Austin 3-4 months ago, he was probably impaired on pills. Like when they talked to him at the scene, even when they got an interpreter, he was acting like he was out of it. He was acting like he was half in the bag. Now, he passed the breathalyzer, if I remember correctly. This is all off the top of my head, so I'm sorry if I'm getting some of this wrong, but the gist is correct. What about this guy? Don't know. Don't seem to care. That's it. Nothing to see here. Just 5 more of your neighbors dead. You know, it'd be really tough. It'd be really tough to report the truth on this when it doesn't fit the narrative after, some of these outlets that are trying to hide this. They're so wildly supportive of all these protests against ICE, of all these attempts to alert people of ICE presence. There's a new app out there called ICE Block. CNN is basically telling you how to download it and use it. Is that even legal? It gives you a push alert if ICE agents have been spotted within a 5-mile radius of you. But how bad does that look if you've been supporting all this? If you've been going out saying nice things about the anti-ICE protesters, even sympathetic coverage, turn around. Hey, maybe this is why people are okay with mass deportations. Maybe this is why people are okay with, even if they haven't committed any additional crimes other than breaking our immigration law, that we're still okay with mass deportations. It's very ugly what people will hide once they go through this little start the deceitful path. But we're going to learn more. There's an investigation of this crash happened in Kaufman County. But the American Truckers United is a advocacy group for American truckers specifically. And they're all over this. They're saying this is another mass casualty crash involving a truck driver who could not speak English. Our highways are not safe. Get these guys off our roads now. Well, doesn't that sound like a nice group to talk to? Well, good. We'll have them on next. From the American Truckers United, you're going to hear from our first guest, Shannon Everett. What do the fellow truckers think about this situation? And also, truckers out there, I know there's a lot of you listening. You've never called into a radio show before. This is a perfect time to have a first here, because I want to know what y'all think about this. Because I have all kinds of questions, and a lot of people listening don't know what you know about what's going on in the trucking industry. But we're all kind of looking at each other saying, how do we solve this problem? How do we get rid of them? How do we put in an English test? And if so, how would we enforce it? You just start pulling over truckers, asking them Jeopardy questions? I mean, jokes aside, this is a real problem now. We have 10 of our fellow Texans, 10 of our neighbors dead from immigrant truckers, maybe here illegally. I don't know about their status, but they couldn't even speak English. And I have no idea how to solve that. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Shannon Everett with American Truckers United, next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Terrible story starting off the show today. Not happy to tell you about a trucker crash near Terrell that kills 5. But I was impressed with some strong statements on X from American Truckers United. They're an advocacy group for American truckers. You probably could have guessed that. And they want us to get to the bottom of that as soon as possible. And it's so good to hear from the trucking community. I think I got some great truckers on hold that are going to give their insight too. And do not dismiss the opinions of your truckers. I have learned as a talk radio show host that these guys get to listen. If they want to be informed, they can listen to news all day, every day. Most truckers who do are more informed about the news than I am. And this is my job. So just imagine how insightful they can be when we have a topic in the news here involving trucking. So my first guest, Shannon Everett from American Truckers United. Welcome to the James Show, sir. So we have this, the official story is the truck driver fell asleep before a crash right outside of Terrell in Kaufman County. Does that sound like a likely scenario? Because it was, bright in the afternoon, and that just that doesn't make sense to an outside observer. Okay, so let's talk about these carriers and these types. Those are very loaded phrases. What do you mean, Shannon? Hey, I'm sorry. We call it Terrell, like Terrell Owens. That's yeah. That's all right. That's all right. Just a minor tweak there. It's on Forest Lane, not too far from us. Yeah, actually, we're familiar with this story on the James Show, and my listeners probably are too. So this was an Ethiopian fella his residence was over here off Forest Lane and 635, and there's an apartment where there's like a 12 apartment block that this company has on the dole, and they just run guys in and out of there. And so since it's in the truck company's name, we don't really know who all lives there, and we don't really have very good paperwork or a paper trail to back it up. And it's the trucking company that owns these, so they're just moving guys in, paying them what in sand. I mean, they're undercutting the American truckers, and I think that's where y'all are really getting the short end of the stick as the American trucker. Love that term. Well, I hear this from my trucker friends. I'm from out in East Texas. That's a very popular profession out there. And, the owner operators, the guy that owns a truck by himself and just leases himself out, he can't compete against these big conglomerates that own many trucks and they have many truck drivers and they're paying them the bare minimum possible. And I have seen personal friends of mine go out of business because of this. And I love the term labor dumping. That's the perfect term for it. Yeah. All right, Shannon Everett, American Truckers United. How do we fix this? Oh, really? Do we know if this guy is an immigrant or an illegal immigrant in the Terrell crash? Cuba. That's a new one. Real quick, Shannon Everett, American Truckers United, you keep using the term EAD. What is that? Okay. And this is an end around those laws? That's great info. Shannon, I'm out of time, but you're the first person I heard say he has been verified as a Cuban. So we'll keep an eye on this, and I appreciate your time. Seems like you got a great advocacy group. We love our truckers out there, and you can go check them out, americantruckers.com, and also find them on Twitter and X. A lot of good info there. Thank you, Shannon. All right, I want to hear from truckers next. Don't even bother calling. The lines are full. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey, homeowners. James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. And look, don't just trust me, the guy on the radio, when you need to have your roof inspected and or fixed. There's some great reviews that were just posted on Google over the weekend. Let me read you a couple of them. This is from June 27th. It says, this is Friday. John Tiss and Trevor Well, I would be lying if I said I met a better roofing company than Blue Ribbon Roofing and Remodeling. Not even close. The professionalism was top notch and exceeded my expectations on all levels. Thank you, Blue Ribbon Roofing. Thank you, Braden, for the 5-star review. Another one that came in on Friday. I'm sorry, on Saturday. It said Blue Ribbon Roofing really rolled out the red carpet and made getting a new roof easy, truly seamless, and actually very quick. My contacts were extremely helpful, knowledgeable, always quick to respond. The large roofing crew worked hard and quietly. They truly did an outstanding job. The crew was incredibly diligent about picking up nails throughout the day. I've literally not seen one nail since my new roof was put on. I would recommend Blue Ribbon Roofing to anyone, including my close friends and family. Well, thank you very much, Wendy, for your awesome 5-star review. And you're over here sweating it because getting a new roof could be a big pain. You don't know how to deal with the insurance company. You don't know how much it's going to cost. Wouldn't you like to come back a week later and you feel this positive about your roofing experience? Go to blueribbondfw.com. If you need a new roof, mention you heard it on the James Show, get a free ridge vent ventilation upgrade. I have one of those. Go to blueribbondfw.com. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. I'm your host, James Parker. And if I'm a little excited about asking truckers for their insight on this situation we have going, stemming from the 5-fatality crash that was caused outside of Terrell over the weekend, it's because I know they got a lot to say. I know that they've soaked up what so many, because remember, if you're a trucker, you have the ability to listen to talk radio more than I do. And so they've heard what everybody's had to say on this. They've heard things that, almost everyone has an opinion. Oh, I didn't think about it that way. Well, they've heard everybody's, I didn't think about it that way. And then they put in that little blender of a brain of theirs, and they can often surprise you with ideas that you didn't think of, especially on something that's in their wheelhouse. No pun intended. Starting off, and if you're a trucker, you want to call in. The question really is, I'm asking truckers, how do we solve this problem? We have another immigrant trucker, whether it's legal or illegal. It seems to be labor dumping. I love that term from Shannon, American Truckers United. How do we solve this, though? Do we just cut off all foreigners from truckers? Do we start pulling over truckers and giving them an English test? I mean, we already have so many on the road. What would your solution be? 800-288-9227. This is Nathan in Saginaw. You're on WBAP.
Well, you said you wanted a truck driver to call in, and I got about 40 years worth of experience, so guess I qualify, and I learned a little bit from that last caller that I didn't ever know.
Well, have you seen a stark change in the makeup of truckers in the last 4 years now that they started doing these EADs?
Well, I remember going to Laredo picking up loads a lot, and 10 years ago or better, 20 years, I noticed where the Mexican truckers were coming over to United States, and they were getting way on out there. I've seen them over in Atlanta before, driving their trucks and their Mexican rigs,
Yeah, you know what? When I first started in radio it'll almost be 23 years ago, I remember truckers complaining about how NAFTA had really opened up the competition for truckers within the United States, because they're not moving here. They don't need a green card. They're just driving a truck, and they'll go home as soon as their run's over. So that was a weird sort of loophole around immigration laws that were hurting truckers. And now it seems they've expanded that in the number of people you have to compete against.
I've always seen it as, putting one more American out of a job,
Yeah.
A lot of people like driving trucks.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Nathan. Let's go to the next trucker. Ken, Arlington, you're on WBAP. How do we fix this?
Well, the way it was when I got my CDL back in 1989, they drove to a port of entry, dropped off the trailer, and whatever was going into Mexico, they swapped trailers. So the American companies dropped their trailers at the port of entry. The Mexican truck driver picked it up and took it back into Mexico. The trailers that were coming in from Mexico was dropped off at the port of entry and taken into the United States. I think they were allowed to drive like 25 miles to their port of entry, the designated area to drop off that trailer. Well, and that was it. The free trade agreement ruined everything.
Was it vastly more expensive doing it that way? Did it slow down everything, having to unhook and rehook a trailer? Was it that big of a pain in the butt?
No, because that's the way it was. It was set up that way. And there was never anything to where they were allowed to drive into the United States. I think if you had an international license, you could. But for the most part, whatever was coming out of Mexico was dropped off at the port of entry.
They have international licenses?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that. I've driven 0 trucks for a living, sir.
Yeah. I mean, there's people that are...
Who issues that?
Drive. I would have no idea who does the international license.
The UN? Interpol? Who would that even be?
I don't know.
See, this is why I want to talk to truckers. I don't know these things.
I've driven to Alaska. So from the United States, I've driven to Alaska. So, and that's the way it was. 40 years ago, it was dropped off at the port of entry.
That seems like an easy fix. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. Let's go to David in California. You're on WBAP. How do we fix this, David?
Well, they just got to start yanking the licenses of these guys
who just don't know what they're doing out here. I watch them drive at 70, 75. They're 3 feet off of somebody's bumper. They're stacked up out here. And year in, year out, I see, tenfold of crushed vehicles, families killed and destroyed by these unqualified, I just call them highway terrorists. They'll park on the side of the road. They'll pull right out into traffic. They'll go 5 miles an hour, won't get up any road speed, and cause everybody to go every which way. And it's just nuts out there anymore. And it really got bad about 5-6 years ago. But I've watched it progressively get worse in the I've been out here over 40 years, and they just got to start yanking these guys off the road.
Well, David, in California, people don't think a whole lot about truckers and trucking until you start letting in all these people who aren't up to the caliber of what we had before, obviously. And now in just the last 3.5 months, we have 10 fellow Texans who are dead because we relaxed our standards on truckers. So apparently it really was kind of a big deal to change these rules, and we're suffering for it. So I hope we can restore it and give it back, and you guys get a little bit of praise, because I don't see American truckers doing this.
Well, no, you don't. And the experienced drivers out here, they've been out here a long time, and they know how to be safe. And I just want to point out something else. It's really disgusting. These guys, I don't know if I can say this, but they'll defecate in plastic bags, dump it in parking lots, dump it on the side of the road, just wherever, all over. Why don't they just DNA test these guys and ship them out of here if they get caught doing it? I'm sick of it, man. It's just, and anybody who knows what I'm talking about, they know I'm not making it up. It's a different world out here.
All right. Well, I appreciate your insight, and I'm glad we could help the rest of the world hear what you had to say there. That's David in California. Truckers, how do we solve this? We have another immigrant trucker mass fatality crash in Texas. Trucker crash killed 5 over the weekend in Terrell, a lot more injured. Let's talk about solving this problem. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. You know, this is why we talk about politics so much, is these policies have consequences in the real world. And we've had 10 Texans pay for these bad policies with their lives in just the last 4 months here. We had the crash by the Ethiopian immigrant who got some little chintzy workaround visa, and he apparently fell asleep at the wheel too. Turned out he was probably on pills or something. I don't have the finality of the toxicology report, but the cops in the police report, I read it, it's just a few pages, talked about how he could barely talk, even when they brought the interpreter out who spoke Amharic, because he's from Ethiopia. He could barely talk, and so he seemed to be impaired. We have this guy who just in the middle of a bright, sunny afternoon, same thing, air quote, fell asleep at the wheel. And because he's behind the wheel of a giant multi-ton machine, basically a freight train on wheels, he plowed through the cars in front of him on Interstate 20 westbound, just over there between the Buc-ee's and Hiram Road exit. Killed 5 more people, many more injured. What do we do about this? People are dying because we have relaxed our policies. How do we, is it so easy we just reset it? What do we do about the ones that are already here? I don't think we just reset the rules. I think we go through and reset the rules. We revoke everyone who got one of these EADs. Isn't that what Shannon was calling it from American Truckers United? 800-288-9227. I especially want to hear from truckers. This is Aaron in North Richland Hills. You're on WBAP.
Hey, James. Hey, yeah, I've done heavy haul trucking. I haven't been driving it, but I own the business, and I saw the thing. We started in 2009, and you could see it getting worse and worse as the years go on. And what you're not thinking about either is insurance. Think about how the insurance has gone up in America based on vehicles, trucks, everything. It's due to these wrecks and stuff. It's no different than us going over to Egypt and driving a truck for them over there, not knowing the highway system, the signs, everything. It's all just a big old major issue. And it's going to get even worse with cars. I mean, look at the state of Texas. Now you go get an inspection done with your car. Doesn't matter if the brake lights work, the brake pads, all that stuff. I don't know what's going on with our government, but they're making it worse and worse based on drivers, and especially in Texas, if not America.
Well, I am not with you on the inspection sticker stuff. I lived in Oklahoma for a year, like 20 years ago, and they didn't have inspection stickers. And you know what? Everything worked just fine. It was amazing. Cars weren't running off the road. I mean, you still had drunk drivers and whatnot, but the inspection wasn't really solving anything, making you go through a dance. And how many of you got a corrupt inspection sticker when they were still the law of the land back in the day? I know a guy, even though your blinker's out, if you slip him another 20, then yeah, you'll still get your sticker. But no, the rest of that I totally agree with. And these guys are dangerous. It's affecting everyone's insurance. If you just have liability these days, you're kidding yourself. Go ahead.
Yep. And one other thing, think about this. They're wanting to come out with these 18-wheelers that are fully electric. You think the weight on these trucks now weigh a lot? Just wait till those get in service. You're going to have these 18-wheelers going down the road with all these batteries for the weight, and they get in a wreck, it's going to be 10 times worse.
Well, I trust the robot drivers more than the dude from Cuba who just got an EAD a couple months ago, or the Ethiopian popping pills on 35 in Austin. But thank you very much, Aaron. I appreciate your call. Good stuff. Let's go to Dan in El Paso. You're on WBAP. What do you think, Dan?
Oh, man, that guy was spot on. Well, 2 things I see out here going to I-10. I've had a dedicated route out here for probably 4 years, but before then I've been coming to El Paso. And, man, there are the demographics of drivers just changed. There's so many Indian drivers, so many Mohammed drivers. And up in Anthony at exit 0, I saw this a long time ago. They have, some kind of training session going up there where there'll be 50 just foreigners training for a CDL with one truck. And tell me, how are they supposed to learn how to truck drive? And they're all foreigners. Everything from South Americans to, Africans, everything out there. So I see it. I know what's going on out here. I see it every day.
So there's some moneyed interests who are making a killing because they can undercut you, Dan.
Oh, man, I'll tell you what. Out here, you cannot pull a load out of El Paso because of all the small companies that have formed. coming back this way. They do it for pennies, and they love it. They'll do it for free almost. And we can't make a living out here anymore like that. They've undercut the American truck driver out of it. And I'm with that guy about the insurance. Insurance has gone way up on companies, and they're having to go out of business because of all these wrecks. I mean, there's shell trailers sitting on the side of 10 going to El Paso of so many wrecks that happen pretty much every week. Every week I see it.
Really?
Every week. It's crazy. Oh, man.
Are you from El Paso?
No, I drive from San Angelo to El Paso on a liquor run, driving it to Glaciers out this way.
Well, next time you have some leftovers, you can drop them over here by me and Bug Toss. So thank you very much, Dan in El Paso.
Yeah, you got it, boy.
Thanks for the
yes,
insight.
Sir. You got it.
I do not have time for one more. The rest of you truckers, hold on. I see you. I want to keep talking to truckers about this because I think we're making some progress here. You know, we're having the discussion. We're finding out what the problem is. Where did it start? What's the genesis? And now we know how to fix it. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. We continue with the trucker community educating us on how to fix this deal so we can get fewer mass fatality crashes on Texas highways. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I know. Good to see you. Wish it was on better circumstances. Stick with us. As soon as we get done figuring out and solving this trucker issue, we got to talk about Karmelo Anthony being indigent and getting a public defender at your expense. But I have some great truckers who are on the line. This is bothering me now. This trucker crash in Terrell that killed 5 people. The reports are he's an immigrant. We had the guy on from American Truckers United who said he was from Cuba. And I don't know if he has some sort of papers. I don't think he went through the traditional legal immigration situation, especially considering his status as a Cuban. However, there's a stark change in the demographics of our trucking community, starting with the program that we were told it's just popped up 4 years ago, where you get an EAD, just an emergency authorization, and then they can therefore get a CDL. And now in the last 4 months, just in Texas alone, we've had 2 of these truckers, these immigrant truckers, crash into the back of some Americans in traffic, and we've lost 10 of your neighbors just in the last 4 months. Does this happen with American truckers? I'm sure it happens every once in a while, but this is already too much. 800-288-9227. Jason, Little Elm, you're on WBAP.
Hey, I've been an over-the-road trucker for about 20 years now. And basically what I'm seeing with these AEDs, you got to understand how easy it is to get one of these. They're not tied. They're not like a traditional visa that's tied to a specific job.
Like a worker-sponsored visa?
Yeah, so they're basically, these immigrants are free agents, pretty much. So they apply for the AED, they get their work authorization, and then they could go work for whoever they want to. They're 1099, basically, self-employed people. They can go get their CDL, and they could drive for whoever they want to. And what a lot of people don't know is a lot of these immigrants that are driving over the road now are actually immigrants that are waiting to get status maybe for something else. Like they could be an engineer or something else, and they're in the country waiting to get a visa for doing something that they want to do or that they're qualified for, but they need to work, they need to support themselves, so they're doing other things, and this is an easy pathway to do that, and they might not be as experienced or even want to be a truck driver.
So it seems to be,
behind the wheel.
Jason, it seems to be the solution is repeal this program and probably be a little more restrictive on all immigrant truckers. Is that what I'm reading?
You know what? Or maybe even tie the EA holder or EAD holder to a specific job or the company that they're working for, the carrier that they're working for. Do it like any other type of a traditional visa. Make it like that. So. But, my second point is there's a lot of – we have enough homegrown bad drivers.
I think we just lost.
Immigrants are causing all the accidents, but there is an uptick in this program, and the platforms make it easy to get behind the wheel really quickly. And you solve that problem, and plus just with the uptick of just drivers needed and, with all the things that we want. As consumers, there's just a high demand for drivers.
All right, Jason, Little Elm, glad you got it out there. You added a little to the conversation. He thinks the immigration status should be tied to an employer. Sounds like an improvement. Olivia, Dallas, you're next up on WBAP. How do we solve the problem with these immigrant truckers and mass fatality crashes?
Hey there, darling. Okay, so I agree with Jason wholeheartedly, but also add more extensive training to any kind of immigrant truckers that come in, because obviously they're not going to know our roads. Like you had mentioned earlier, if we go over there to Egypt, we're not going to know their roads and their signs. Well, they don't know ours, so they need a bit more extensive training on that. But to also help it to get rid of the wrecks, that comes down to the non-truck drivers, and that's the people who are stupidly driving and texting everywhere, breaking, riding each other's butts while they're on the road during any kind of traffic. And
Olivia,
they don't look for the truckers.
That's not what happened in either one of these scenarios, though. In the Terrell crash or in the Austin crash, there was some guy who, air quote, fell asleep at the wheel and just ran into a bunch of cars that were basically stopped in the road because there was traffic. So And
that shouldn't happen.
of course, but also, Olivia, I'm one of the people that's running around on my phone, texting, eating a burrito, driving with my thigh, messing with the radio. I don't get in wrecks like this.
Yeah, you should. You shouldn't be doing that because you got these truck drivers driving around. They don't see you doing that, and they're focused on the road because they're told even if they break, they're going to run into something no matter what because of how much weight they have. But yes, when it comes to the immigrant truckers, they should have more extension training. There should be background profiles on every single one of them because we have to go through all the background checks. And
what if we just cut them off altogether? Who says we even really need them?
Well, that wouldn't be too fair altogether because if they're actually coming over here to work and they want to make a life for themselves, it wouldn't be an issue for them then to do this more.
But that's these two guys that just killed 10 of our neighbors in Texas just want to come over here and work and make a living, and 10 people died because of it.
Well, it depends on the level amount of, integrity they have and how much work they want to put into it. If they're just coming over here to dilly-dally, then yes, they're not going to care about their training or what they're giving into it. But if they're actually wanting to make a difference and, be a part of the community and actually, have a good life and, really follow the system, then they wouldn't have a problem with that type of training because they obviously know they need to be safe. They need to take care of everybody else around them as well as their family. And if they don't do that properly, that job doesn't get done right. But if you just hire somebody on who just wants, a dollar here and there, then it goes back to the company that hired them, and they should be held responsible for that.
All right, well, good stuff, Olivia. I think you're a little more lenient than I am on the immigrant trucker, but a lot of people are nicer than I am about stuff like that. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, you're going to hear some more good comments from local truckers and their response to another mass fatality crash in Texas at the hands of an immigrant trucker. I think we pretty much just fleshed out some solutions, but you'll hear from them next, and then we're going to talk about Karmelo Anthony getting a public defender because he's too poor to pay for his own lawyer. Oh, really? I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, seems like we tried to make a deal here. Seems like we wanted to get free truckers, or at least cheaper truckers. And there's people who are willing to move here from all over the planet to do it for less than the American truckers will charge right now. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead. All of our stuff will be a little bit cheaper. Maybe trucking companies can make more money. And we all were kind of okay with it. Now we're paying the price. A trucker crash over the weekend near Terrell kills 5 Texans. Many more injured. This is on top of, 4 months ago in Austin, there was almost an identical crash. Some immigrant trucker who seemed intoxicated in the police report. That's how it was reported. Maybe not on alcohol, but on something. Ran up on the back of a bunch of cars who were stuck in traffic, killed 5 there, including a 4-year-old and an infant. And so this is, if it happens one time, it's terrible. But it's a coincidence that it's an immigrant who's only been here a few months and given this emergency authorization and in the middle of the day was impaired, killed 5 people. Happens twice. It's not a coincidence anymore. So what do we do to solve it? Sounds like from talking to truckers over the last couple of segments, we need to get rid of this program. We need to be the little more higher scrutiny on who we allow to be truckers. Some of them were being nice. Like Olivia was saying, hey, we can still have immigrant truckers. We just got to put them through the same ringer that we put all the Americans through, with maybe a little more training and a little more red tape. I don't know. I think we need to see what it looks like if we just get rid of all of them. Just let Americans be truckers. I mean, it's one of the jobs that you had a friend growing up. I know, because I did too, who you knew that he was going to be trouble, and he ended up, when we were adults, trouble, did a little time, got out. Now there's all kinds of jobs that friend can't get. Can't work at a bank, can't work for the government, can't work for the post office, can't work for anybody who doesn't allow felons. But he can be a trucker. Now, I would like to find out. Let's cut this off. Because the question becomes, how many people have to die before everyone agrees with me? Well, I guess 10 isn't enough, is it? Bill, Oklahoma, you're on WBAP. How do we fix this?
Well, I'm kind of disappointed that Texas and Oklahoma both have let Arkansas get ahead of the game. They had check stations, and they had a sentence wrote out, and if they could not read that sentence out loud, they were arrested.
Yeah, Bill, I'm glad you bring that up. We had talked about that, I think, last year, and it's even more sad than that, because Arkansas didn't necessarily pass a new law. They actually just enforced a law that has existed this entire time. Anybody could have been doing this without the state legislature or anybody lifting a finger. You just had to have the governor nod to the state police and like, hey, you see this law over here? Yeah, we're going to start enforcing that again.
Absolutely.
Love that, because the reports are from the people who were on Twitter and supposedly know someone at the scene. This guy couldn't speak English, and it was the same thing with the guy in Austin, the Ethiopian that ran through and killed 5 people, busting up traffic down there. They couldn't speak English, and that's already like, we don't even have to pass a new law or change anything. We just have to enforce the rules on the books. I love that. I'm glad you brought that up, Bill.
Wow. I wish they would start now. Well, yesterday wouldn't be soon enough.
Yeah, what a no-brainer. You're absolutely right. Thank you, Bill. And Thomas and May Pearl, you're on WBAP. What do you think?
Hello, James. Appreciate your show. Well, one thing I'd like for you to do is look every mile you travel on an interstate, you see a huge billboard with advertisements, accident injury lawyers. So I would like for you to talk to one of these lawyers. They're recouping $50 billion a year for drivers in Texas.
Will do. All right. Well, thank you, Thomas. So Thomas is, we all get what he's talking about there, right? There's a sort of a perverse financial incentive that's laid out with bad drivers, and, that's worth exploring too. Thank you, Thomas and May Pearl. All right, coming up next, you're not going to like this other story. This next story is kind of awful, too. Karmelo Anthony's defense team on Friday were granted indigent status. Do you know what that means? That means they went to the judge and they said, here, look, we're too poor to afford to pay for Karmelo Anthony's defense, so we're going to need a public defender. Now, you're not a crazy person. You remember that they've raised over $500,000 for this guy's defense fund. However, the sleuths online are pointing out that considerations for whether or not Karmelo Anthony can afford his defense, they don't consider relatives in that. And if the money's going to be controlled by his mom and dad or his mom or whoever, not him, they can somehow leave that out of the consideration. But there's all kinds of problems with this. How on earth does this guy get a public defender with a $500,000 defense fund? But that's not even the real concern here. The real concern, and we'll talk about this next on the James Show, what kind of mom would do that? No, I'm going to take this $500,000 and I'm not going to go buy the best defense lawyer for my son. We're going to just give him a public defender and keep the rest? Holy cow. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. That's next on News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. I'm James Parker. You're listening to News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Do not be mad at me for this next story. I did not make this happen. I do not agree with this. But you're going to have some strong emotions when you find out that Karmelo Anthony's defense team told the court at the end of last week that he needs a public defender because he can't afford a lawyer. Now, you and I know that's not really possible. There's a $500,000 that's been raised for this guy in Give, Send, Go. Even crazier, he was awarded indigent status, and he's going to get a public defender. A lot of people are focusing on the obvious contradiction here, the cognitive dissonance in your head. How can someone who's raised $500,000, I think it's up to $541,000 through a Give, Send, Go account, not have enough money for their lawyers? And the other polite, smart, smug, smarmy, sometimes people on Twitter, X, Facebook, whatever, will reply under it. The wealth and resources of your relatives is not taken into consideration when determining whether or not you can afford a lawyer. So Karmelo Anthony is he 17 or 18? 18, I think. Yeah, I think he's 18. If he can't afford a lawyer on his own, does he even have a job? Does he even have any income? Does he even have any assets? You know, I doubt he owns a house. I doubt he has fat stacks piled up in his bank account. So is it really that easy? Even though we can see clearly, publicly, $500,000 in donation to this guy's defense, he gets a public defender. That's what a lot of people are focusing on. And you're not wrong to question that. Of course that's BS. Of course that's just like stepping in a nice, fresh cow patty. But I see it just the human element is a little darker than that. You're Karmelo Anthony's mom. You have $541,000 at your disposal to help your son, who's 18 years old, who is facing possibly going to prison for the rest of his life. And instead of doing everything you can do to keep him out of jail, instead of taking every single cent that has been donated to you, plus your own assets, plus anything that you can sell as fast as you can sell it, anything it takes to keep your son out of jail, you're getting him a public defender? Oh my God. You know how they have like Mother of the Year jokes? Is there a worst Mother of the Year joke? Because not only did you raise a child that's capable of taking a knife and putting it into the heart of a fellow human being through the most trivial of offenses, not only did you raise a human that's capable of murder like that, you're not even going to try to defend him. You're going to what? What are you going to do with that money that's more noble or ethical than use it on your son's own defense? You're just going to spend it on yourself? Is that what you're going to do? Oh my God. Now we have some answers here. Like, who would raise a demon like that? Well, maybe another demon. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Or maybe there's just some legal loophole I don't know about. You think Karmelo Anthony deserves a public defender? Don't you think he should have to use the money that he's raised to defend himself instead of your money? And don't you think his mom has just got to be some offer rock? I do not understand. I hate just disparaging the woman because she's in a terrible spot and she has a terrible son who's done a terrible thing and she might be losing her kid for the rest of his life, at least the freedom of her kid for the rest of his life. But man, I do not get that at all. From the point of view of someone who has 4 kids, taking that money and still saying, no, go get a public defender. No, you'll be fine. What could possibly go wrong? My mind is blown. 800-288-9227. Hello, Mike in Louisville. You're on WBAP.
This story gets more disgusting the further that we go, and that now the trial has been pushed off until sometime next year, so we get to play this game monthly until this happens. Is there no type of, is this not fraud as far as the Give, Send, Go? Was that not set up as a defense fund for Karmelo Anthony? And is there any type of recourse? Shouldn't Give, Send, Go be saying, hey, we want our money back. You're not using it for the defense of your child. We didn't use it for you to buy a new Cadillac Escalade and move into a $900,000 house.
Right. So a couple of pushbacks to that, because I've been watching this all over the social media all weekend. So, like Sean on Facebook is saying the donations are a moot point because they are under fraud investigation. The donations are supposedly frozen because of fraud. Now, I didn't see that, but I have seen other people say that. So, and I just hadn't seen it pop up in like a news service or anything other than the comment section on some of these social media posts. That's not what I believe. I think they can easily get around it because they can say, just like they did with there was another hearing earlier where they said, we had to spend this money on security and possibly a new house because it's for Karmelo's safety's sake. So the defense fund isn't so specific where they say you donate this money and it's going to go straight, all of it 100% is going to go to a lawyer. They've already made the case, and I think they've won the case that spending on extra security or a new car or a new house in a different neighborhood, they're trying to just protect their kid and their safety, and that's part of the overall air quotes concept of defense, I suppose. But I think they're going to get away with it.
Okay, it's disgusting. It really is.
It is disgusting. It may be legal. It may not be fraud. But also, look, the people that donated the money, I don't think they're upset about this. And thank you for your call, Mike in Louisville. I don't think they're upset about this. The people that donated to Karmelo Anthony's fund, if you went and pulled them aside and be like, are you upset that they're spending this on an Escalade? They'd be like, nope. Do you want your money back? No, I'm fine. Whatever. Hey, a white kid died and they might throw a black kid in prison for it, and that bothers me enough that I'm going to donate my money for it. I don't think they're going to care about the nuance of whether or not it fits the legal definition of a defense fund. Do you? I just think this is from the point of view of a parent. What kind of parent is doing this to their own kid? That's the crazy part. 800-288-9227. We'll continue with this next. Karmelo Anthony gets indigent status, public defender. Wow. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. You're listening to News Talk 820 93.3 FM WBAP. Look, there's a few people that are saying Give, Send, Go's having to give back the donations. You know, I just checked that over the weekend, and that looked like it was still up and taking orders and everything just as recently as yesterday. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just looking at a frozen page. But in the situation we're talking about right now, Karmelo Anthony was granted indigent status. Now, you and I had already slapped our forehead that he was even allowed to ask for indigent status. Indigent status meaning he doesn't have the financial means to defend himself, and so he will be awarded a public defender at taxpayer cost, where you're going to pay for his lawyer. It's pretty much what that means. How terrible is that? But, I'm kind of thinking second level here. It's not just that the guy is taking $500,000 in donations and not spending it on a lawyer, spending it on other things. Okay, that's unethical. That's kind of immoral. I think it's legal. I'm not really going to lose any sleep over that because you're wasting the private voluntary donations of citizens who, they're not forced to give money to you. They knew who they were giving money to and what kind of person you were. So they kind of deserve it. However, the taxpayers of Collin County are now going to be forced to pay for this guy's defense. But the goal on the Give, Send, Go campaign was updated just at the end of last week. Their goal, $1.4 million for a legal team. There's a red flag. What do you mean a legal team? You were just awarded a public defender and you upped. This is according to reporting from Sarah Fields, who we're trying to get on the show for tomorrow. She's got a lot of this good Karmelo Anthony stuff and some background on the trucker and his whole Cuban heritage. But it's also the same Sarah Fields that you need to pay attention to because that's who Dominic Alexander, the political activist that the Karmelo Anthony family hired to front run the media for this. Remember, he called her out at the press conference in April.
Sarah Fields. Never heard of this woman. This is the kind of despicable things that led to the father being here.
Yeah. Well, I hope she's on the show tomorrow. She's a great guest. Does a lot of good work bringing this stuff up because the other news outlets won't. 800-288-9227. This is Jason. Jason in Dallas. You're on WBAP.
Thank you, James. Hey, I just wanted to let you know that word on the street, all the kids at the high school said that within 4 or 5 weeks of the incident, the mother went out and spent that money and bought her a $500,000 house in the Frisco area. If you have some way of researching that with the
I do have ways of researching that. However, we're really messed up on the timetable here because it looks like they may have been in that house for a while, for long before they got all stabby there. But I've seen reporting both ways where people who are just so confident amongst themselves. So, that doesn't even really bother me because even if they did be in that house for the last 2 years, which I think is the reporting I'm more leaning toward, then they definitely aren't indigent. They definitely don't need a public defender. But they also kind of escaped the sort of the socioeconomic factors excuse, what do you expect? They're poor people and they're desperate, and so they lash out. No, this is a nice guy who had a cushy life and he wasn't picked on, he wasn't bullied. He's one of the rich kids who lives in a nice house and probably is like considered a cool kid if he has a decent attitude. But I mean, how do you feel about him getting a public defender? Whether he just got in that house a month ago or 2 years ago, he doesn't deserve a public defender.
Exactly. Well, if they were renting that house or renting to buy or whatever, now suddenly they had the money to make the purchase when they should have used that money, like you're saying, for their son's legal fees.
Agreed. All right. Thank you very much. That's Jason in Dallas. Let's go to Paul. Paul and Ben Wheeler. You're on WBAP. Your thoughts on the Karmelo Anthony situation?
Yes, sir. You got to put your tinfoil hat on with me for a second.
Oh, it's right here.
Okay. This mom here knows that she can raise more money the longer this drags out. And what way to fight a guilty verdict than to say he didn't have proper representation? So you up the amount of money that you're looking for. You continue to gain resources. he's going to get found guilty with a public defender. Then she could say,
No.
we want a retrial with an adequate lawyer team, and she makes all this money.
All right,
And I more money.
I think your theory is possible, but not probable. I think the far more probable scenario is mom's like, well, I could spend $500,000 on this guy who's going to end up going to jail anyway because he's guilty as hell, or I could spend it on myself.
It's possible, but I mean, the money train keeps going as long as there's trials, right?
Well,
So,
as long as the public opinion and the racial angle keep floating, then yeah, the money will keep flowing in. But it'll stop at some point. It's a dangerous prediction to make. I think it would stop at some point. People will realize whether or not this guy is actually deserving of it. The more they actually look into it, because the real story, the real facts, are not on this guy's side. Tony in Oklahoma, you're on WBAP. Go.
Yeah, I spent 57 years in California, and I don't know if Texas is anything like it, but when it comes to public defenders, they can keep this public defender up until the day of his first day in court. He can ask for a different public defender, and they will just continue this, and it's unlimited.
So what, you can just rope-a-dope the court system and stay out of jail indefinitely?
In California, yes. When it comes to public defenders.
Why wouldn't everybody do that at all times?
That I can't tell you. But I know when I was in California, the biggest scam was some of these cartels were doing home break-ins. They were never convicted. They always stayed in county jail for years and years and years. Never saw prison.
I'll keep an eye out for that. I don't think that's what's going on here, but I'll remember Tony in Oklahoma said that. If it's possible, I'm sure shady people will try it. Aaron, North Richland Hills, you're on WBAP.
Hey, James, good talking to you again here. Okay. Now, what the gentleman just talked about, he kind of stole my thunder. That is correct. Now, I don't know if they can do it forever, but what he's doing is a stall tactic. He's claiming the indigent to wait till the last minute, and then he's going to claim, okay, my lawyer's not good enough, and then they'll reissue another one, and then it gets backed up another 3 to 6 months. Now, I don't know how many times he can do that, but that's what they're doing is they're stalling him out.
Did you come to Shaw's? Did you come to the meet and greet at Shaw's? Is this that, Aaron?
Yeah, but
oh,
yeah,
okay.
Same Aaron. Yeah, don't worry. I didn't. Hey, and that's who I called earlier on the trucking thing too. But don't worry. I didn't go down to that protest that Dallas that weekend. But now, real quick, back to James. But no, that's a stall tactic, and they're probably using the son's his Social Security number and income because now he's an adult, and that's how they can claim indigent. So it's a tax evasion, not tax evasion, but they're working their way around the system. Is what they're doing.
I know, but doesn't that? I mean, we all kind of agree that ethically speaking, that's wrong. Considering he has a $500,000 defense fund, all the people that were donating money weren't donating it to his mom; they were donating it to the Karmelo Anthony defense fund. So it seems like a really weird oversight in our legal system that's not taken into consideration when determining whether or not you're indigent. Yeah, I'm indigent, except for this $500,000 fortune I'm sitting on. Other than that, totally indigent.
100% agree, but that's what he's doing is he's stalling out. See, they're going to wait, and then all of a sudden, our attorney's not good enough, and they're going to have to reissue another one.
I don't think that's a thing. I don't think you can maybe get away with doing that once, but if that really worked, why wouldn't everybody do it every time? Because I would do it if I got like a parking ticket. I would challenge it in court, which I have challenged. I got an offender bender when I was like 20 years old. I challenged it in court. It was great. Took it to trial. Got to pick my own jury. Say the defense rests. Like cross-examine people. I'm 20, y'all. I'm 20. It was hilarious. I like those theories though. 800-288-9227. We're talking about Karmelo Anthony getting indigent status and a public defender, even though he's sitting on a fortune of a $500,000 defense fund. Coming up next, let's compare his situation to the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. A lot of people are bringing this up, and they make a really good point, and you'll hear it next on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hello, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I'm your host, James Parker. Kind of ticks you off, doesn't it? Finding out Karmelo Anthony is going to get a public defender. And not that you want him to get the best defense in the world or that you think it even matters. We all think pretty much this guy committed murder, or at least some level of manslaughter. This guy needs to go to prison for a very long time. And the fact that the mom is going to allow her son to get a public defender when she has the ability to go get the dream team. If Johnny Cochran was still around, she could probably get him to come down here and do it. Or the Kardashian, Robert Kardashian, remember him? Whoever the modern day equivalent, I don't know, Jim Adler, Texas Hammer, or somebody. But no, she's going to get him a public defender, spend that money on herself. What the heck? So a lot of people are passing around this comparison between the situation Karmelo Anthony's in, comparing that to the situation Kyle Rittenhouse was in, because they do have some similarities, but also some glaring differences. Number one, Karmelo Anthony brought a knife to a track meet, got insulted, and killed someone. His bond got reduced to $200,000. He only did 12 days in pretrial jail before he got bonded out. And, you know, his family might have a new house. I don't know if that's necessarily because of the defense fund, but obviously there's this whole weird indigent status thing going on. Kyle Rittenhouse brought a gun to a riot, something that makes a lot more sense. He had to shoot rioters to save his life, both of which were pedos. And a third guy who he only shot after he pulled a gun on him. Kyle Rittenhouse got a $2 million bond, did not have it reduced, and spent 86 days in pretrial detention. That's a weird, disparate turn of events. What could be the difference? 800-288-9227. This is Jessica in Lone Oak. You're on WBAP.
Hey, James.
Hey, Jessica.
Hey, I can't help but think, is this a prerequisite for maybe somebody fancy to pick him up pro bono?
I don't know. So flesh that out. What are you thinking there?
I'm thinking maybe like law firms require you to be declared as indigent before they pick you up pro bono. Maybe his PR guy already knows somebody.
Okay.
For themselves and pick them up pro bono. And
so like a Benjamin Crump or somebody can step in and just, you know what? Of all the comments I've read online, you're the first person to put that little nugget in my head, and I can't say you're wrong. That might be quite insightful. However, I think he was awarded a public defender. How does that work? Can you say, I don't want this public defender, I want this other guy that he's going to cover me for free? You know, I'm having Jeremy Rosenthal on. Isn't he tomorrow? Garrett, isn't Jeremy Rosenthal tomorrow? Yeah, coming on tomorrow. You know what? That's a great idea. I'll answer this in an interview tomorrow. I'm not going to pretend like I know things I don't, Jessica. I've already embarrassed myself too many times doing that in my talk radio career. But I will ask someone who knows better tomorrow. Jeremy Rosenthal, our legal analyst, is going to be on. Okay?
I'll be listening.
All right, hang on. Jessica, Lone Oak. Yeah, hang on. I'm just typing in some notes here, and I'm trying to fill the space. Karmelo, public defender, pro bono. See, now you are going to listen to tomorrow's show, I bet, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Hopefully I'll get a better answer for you, but you brought up a great point. Maybe this is a setup. So a Benjamin Crump or some other guy who, whether he wins or not, he's going to get all kinds of publicity that he couldn't otherwise buy. And if you're one of these race hustlers, or some people like to call them blacktivists, boy, this could be the launch pad for your career. Good point, Jessica. We'll find out tomorrow. Brandon, Arlington, you're next up on WBAP.
So one of the things you keep saying is sorry, I'm nervous. I've never done this before, but you keep using the word that it's not ethical, but obviously they're not ethical. He killed somebody, so that's the problem. They don't care about it.
Oh, that's a solid point there, Brandon. Yeah, that seems to be pretty unethical so far. And obviously, and I use the term unethical to say it's bad but not illegal, to sort of delineate between the two, because you and I can all agree that if you have a $500,000 defense fund and you're not using it to try and keep your kid out of jail, you're probably a bad person. However, that's not illegal. So I just use unethical there to, draw a border of distinction between the two.
Right. And the parents, if it was me, my parents would spend every dime they had if I was innocent.
I think that's you. I think that's me. I really hope that's like 80 to 90% of parents. They would take out a second mortgage on their house, if not sell it out they would sell their spare car. They would half the furniture would be sold on Facebook Marketplace. I would do everything I could to keep my son out of jail if I thought he was innocent, obviously. If I knew he was guilty. In fact, I'd tell him to plead guilty and just do the right thing and walk into your punishment willingly. But yeah, this isn't the people we're dealing with now, is it, Brandon?
Right, and he had lawyers that were, doing his stuff before. Now they walked away. They're like, we can't win this case. I don't want to be a part of it.
Wow. All right, Brandon.
That's my thought.
And I try and be like all cold and hard and like this is the letter of the law, but this is kind of heartbreaking stuff. I almost feel bad for part of me. A very small fraction of me feels bad for Karmelo Anthony. This was your mom growing up. Your mom's not going to defend you when you're accused, indicted for murder. She's going to go spend that money on yourself and make you just roll the dice with a public defender. Good Lord. I understand how he became such a monster. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, there's a new app called Ice Block that warns you if there's ICE agents within a 5-mile radius. How on earth could that possibly be legal? We'll talk to an immigration attorney next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Stop it. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WPAP. I am your host, James Parker. Let me run something by you. Does an app that alerts you for when there's ICE agents nearby, does that sound legal to you? Here's CNN explaining the ICE Block app.
The Trump administration steps up ICE raids and mass deportations. One tech developer is pushing back with an app designed to track ICE activity in real time. It's called ICE Block, and it's controversial to say the least. CNN's Claire Duffy is with us now. How does this work?
All right, let me sum it up for you. You sign up. Other people, just kind of like it's the Waze app for traffic, or if they see a crash or if they see a speed trap or if they see a busted tire in the road, they put it on the app and it alerts everyone in the area. So for this one, if someone sees an ICE agent, they put it on the app and everyone within a 5-mile radius gets a push notice. My next guest is going to talk about the legality of such things. Kate Lincoln Goldfinch. She is a Texas immigration attorney back on the James Show. What are the rules? Where are the boundaries on alerting people when it comes to ICE agents and ICE raids, Kate? What if the specific intent of notifying people is to disrupt the aid and help people disrupt the raid and help people escape arrest? All right, Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, I could play the rest of that cut from CNN that kind of explains it, and maybe that this will clear up the situation a little bit.
Now, how does this work, Claire, and what are the legal implications?
Yeah, John, I talked with Joshua Aaron, who is the longtime tech worker who developed this platform, and he said he really wants it to be an early warning system for people about the location of immigrations and customs enforcement officers. So he says he does not want people interfering with those officers' activity, but he does want people to be able to avoid them altogether if they want. So you open the app, it looks like a map, and users can tap the map to report an ICE sighting in their area.
Okay, so the guy says his specific intent is for people to avoid ICE detention. Does that change anything? Yeah, for the rest of us though, we don't see it like that. I don't whose rights are being violated if you're here illegally and they have the paperwork to prove that you're here illegally. I don't mean like their immigration paperwork, but this definitely sounds like they're interfering with ICE being able to detain people because that's all ICE does. They don't throw water balloons, they don't deliver pizzas. They go out and detain people in the field. And so, what other reason could you warn people about an ICE agent other than to help them escape detention? Sure. Well, Kate, I see you that. All right, Kate, you say all this is like shocking and beyond the pale. It sounds absolutely normal to me. If me and Miss Parker and the kids went and robbed a bank, wouldn't we all three go to different detention facilities? Okay, if we were arrested for whatever reason, wouldn't we go to different detention facilities? Me, my wife, and my kids. Okay, so that's a yes. All right. Thank you, Kate. Kate, Lincoln Goldfinch. You can find her at lincolngoldfinch.com, a Texas immigration attorney. I appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks again, Kate. Coming up next, we have a weird story about the Idaho firefighter ambush. Details coming up on the James Show. And I know you probably want to respond to Kate. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. What do we have, mind readers today? You can't see behind the scenes here. There's people who are calling in to play Dead or Alive. Did I say we're playing Dead or Alive? I know we usually play it on Mondays at this time, but I wanted to kind of flip-flop these last two segments because I'm doing a terrible story, and I don't want to go from the terrible Carmelo Anthony immigration, 5 people dying in a car wreck, to Dead or Alive, and then we got to go back to the terrible thing, because my next story is about the Idaho firefighters being ambushed by some psychopath. But guys, on hold, if you want to play Dead or Alive, I'll be doing it in the next segment. For the rest of you, if you want to take up the couple of lines that are left, yes, Dead or Alive, it's the game show where I give you 10 celebrities. You have to tell me if they're dead or alive, and we're playing for 2 tickets to see Rick Springfield. He's coming to Fair Park with the I Want My 80s tour. John Waite, Wang Chung, Paul Young, July 20th. And today's category is 1979 box office stars. Ooh. So 800-288-9227 if you want to get in line for that. You don't have to call in on this next story, though. I don't know if you've heard. This is just a terrible story out of Idaho. And it sounded like the plot to just a really shocking, thrilling movie. But what a tough reminder that we have to share oxygen. We have to share a planet with absolute psychopaths. We're learning more about the guy who did it. What is it? Well, someone started a brush fire. And when the firefighters came out to respond to the call, he started squeezing off rounds. And he killed a couple of them. I think it was one of those where it was just one. And there were a couple more that went to the hospital. And then... Oh, yeah. Because the also another update. There's actually 6 people that died from the Terrell tractor trailer crash that happened over the weekend. Let's see here. Just one still dead. Yeah. So they have a suspect identified. His name's Wes Rowley, and he looks to be a super young guy. Looks like he's 20 years old. Let's see. Killed 2 firefighters, wounded a 3rd. There you go. And the internet sleuths are already digging into this guy, and I don't know why. Some of these guys are motivated by, politics or religion or some antipathy toward a specific group. But this looks like the guys that are, he's just a nut. He's in like a psychopathic nut, like the guy who shot at Virginia Tech, which for a long time was our biggest mass shooting in American history. Then the Pulse nightclub beat it out, and then the Las Vegas shooting beat that one out. But I went through, and I remember, when was that, 2007 or something? I went and read this guy's manifesto and watched the videos that he had put on a new thing called YouTube back in the day. And he's just a psycho. He didn't have coherent thoughts. He was unreasonably angry for irrational reasons. And you just forget, I forget too, that about 2% of us are born with the capability of doing this. Do you realize that? Now, most people that are born with a psychopathic capacity, that doesn't mean that you're going to grow up to be a psychopath. You have to have that capacity plus the added bit of abuse or trauma in childhood, and boom, you are capable of killing people for the slightest of provocations. Carmelo Anthony. But in this one, I'm starting to dig into this guy, and I already feel like stopping. There's no rhyme or reason. This isn't for 72 versions and the glory of Allah. This isn't because he feels some sort of political fire in his belly. Seems like he's just one of these demons, just an absolute demon. That this is the thing you try not to think about because it can ruin your day every day. You mean to tell me about 2% of the population is capable of something like this? And this is even further than your regular old sociopath, like your boss at work or the CEO of a company, very likely to be a sociopath. This is psychopath. This isn't someone who is indifferent to the suffering of fellow human beings. This is a person who actively seeks out inflicting pain. They don't like this world. And they just assume light a match and watch it all burn down. But if they're going to burn the world down, if they're going to give up this life, they want to go out with a little bit of a bang. And the scary part is you can't do anything about these crazy psychopaths until they already do something that warrants putting them in jail. We can't do a Minority Report. We can't run like the 23andMe. So let's see. He has the genetics of a psychopath. All right. Handcuffs, you're going to go into jail for the rest of your life. No one trusts the government with that power. No one trusts anybody with that power. So what do? We just have to put up with him and understand that no matter what we do, even if we arrange society perfectly, even if we have 100% in wedlock births and everyone's raised by their biological parents and no one misses a meal and no one's abused and no one has any problems and no one even hits yellow lights, it's just green lights. There's still going to be 2% of the population that's capable of this. And so I'm not saying this to, scare you or make you worried about walking down the street at night. Just tough reminder. We live in a fallen world, and even if we do everything right, you think those 2 firefighters that died over the weekend because of this guy, you think they deserve that? You think that they were waking up today thinking, well, I hope I have all my estate planning documents in order. Yeah, just wrapped up my will, and, I got a residential trust and some life insurance for my wife and kids, make sure they're okay. Now I'm going to go out and face the psychopaths. Nope. Had no idea. But this is why we hold firefighters, policemen, and first responders in such high regard. How many times are they on the front lines of these psychopaths? And I'm not saying that as pejorative. I'm saying that as the literal technical term. Psychopaths. So if you have a job where you're never getting shot at like I do, how about we just be a little bit more appreciative today? And remember, a lot of us aren't so lucky. They have jobs that they die for. All right, coming up next, speaking of dying, Dead or Alive on The James Show. We're playing for 2 tickets to the I Want My 80s tour. If you want tickets to see Rick Springfield, John Waite, Wang Chung, and Paul Young, call in right now, 800-288-9227, because Dead or Alive's next on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. You are just in time for the James Show Game Show, Dead or Alive. All right, thank you. You're listening to Dead or Alive, the James Show Game Show, where I'm going to list 10 celebrities, and you have to tell me if they're dead or alive. James, that sounds easy. It is easy. Today we're playing for a couple of tickets to the I Want My 80s tour, featuring Rick Springfield, who started in the 70s, by the way, with special guests John Waite, Wang Chung, Paul Young. It's happening at Music Hall at Fair Park, July 20th. Get tickets and information at livenation.com. And look, the I Want My 80s tour, notice how they didn't put it at the outdoor pavilion? They have it at the Music Hall at Fair Park where it's nice and air conditioned. Huh? July 20th. The people who were going to see 80s bands want air conditioning. They got that one right. Don't bother calling in. It's totally full. We're going to start with Christina in Louisville. Well, hello, Christina. You're my first contestant on Dead or Alive. You ready?
I am ready.
All right. Today's category is box office stars from 1979. The top 10 most bankable box office stars from when I was 2. Ready?
Okay.
All right. Burt Reynolds, dead or alive?
Dead.
Clint Eastwood, dead or alive?
Alive.
Jane Fonda, dead or alive?
Alive.
Woody Allen. Is Woody Allen?
Alive.
Well, didn't even get to finish the question there. Christina's all over it. Barbara Streisand, dead or alive?
Alive.
Sylvester Stallone, dead or alive?
Alive.
Roger Moore, dead or alive?
Oh, Roger Moore. 50-50 chance.
Right?
Dead.
You said dead?
Yes.
Well, you guessed correctly, you lucky dog. Mel Brooks, dead or alive?
Dead.
No, in fact, he just turned 99 years old. You were doing so good, Christina. You pretty much cleared the board for John in Dallas. Hey, John in Dallas, you only have to answer 2 more on Dead or Alive, and you win the tickets. You ready?
Oh, yes, sir.
All right, well, don't screw it up. No, number 9 on the list. John Travolta, dead or alive?
Alive.
And Mark Hamill, dead or alive?
Alive.
Oh, well, that was... Hey, you get the tickets, but Christina did most of the work for you, John. You're just the guy who just smartly waited for your turn and knocked it out of the park when you had it. Good job, John. Are you able to go on July 20th? You going to claim the tickets, or can I give them to someone else?
Oh, yeah. I love John Waite.
Oh, well, fantastic. Well, then I think we have a match made in heaven. We have a love connection here. All right, John in Dallas, I'm putting you on hold. Don't hang up. Garrett will get you information. Email you the tickets. That has been today's edition of Dead or Alive. Anyone else enjoying the back and forth with the new Democrat nominee for mayor of New York City, this Zoltan Mondami guy or whatever his name? I don't know. New York City! No, I know his name. Mom Danny. But Zoran is a socialist that he'll admit, but Donald Trump says he's more than that. He's a communist as well, which is just okay.
What did you make of the New York Democrat primary? I'm Donnie.
He's a communist. I think it's very bad for New York. I don't know that he's going to get in. It's inconceivable that but he's a communist, and he's a pure communist. I think he admits it.
And within hours, he was asked about that. Now, he'll say he's a Democrat socialist, but he was asked specifically about the Trump comments, calling him a communist on Meet the Press yesterday. How do you like this answer? You buying this?
Well, let me ask you about what Donald Trump, the president of the United States, has had to say. He's had a lot to say about your campaign. He called you a communist. Because he's the president, I want to give you a chance to respond directly to him. How do you respond? Are you a communist?
No, I am not. And I have already had to start to get used to the fact that the president will talk about how I look, how I sound, where I'm from, who I am, ultimately because he wants to distract from what I'm fighting for. And I'm fighting for the very working people that he ran a campaign to empower, that he has since then betrayed.
Boy, what a sick response that is. No, he did not go after your nationality, your ethnicity, your appearance, how you talk, or where you're from, or you as a person. He specifically criticized your ideology. And don't act like this is some sort of affront, like, oh, it's just discrimination and it's an old white racist guy. No. Even Martin Luther King, you're supposed to be judged by the content of your character, by your politics, by your policies, by your actual what you think, not who you are. And that's what he was criticizing, and you damn well know it. So what does that mean? If this dude wins, and he might not win, because Eric Adams is running as an independent, so maybe this guy won't win. But if he does, we're going to get a lot of good segments and sound bites out of this guy for the next 4 years or so. Get ready to get used to the name Mom Danny if he wins. All right, that's going to do it for the James Show today. After the show, I'm going to go put up the podcast. You can find it wherever you already listen to podcasts, but I prefer you go to the WBAP app or WBAP.com. Coming up next, the great one, Mark Levin. I'm James Parker. This has been the James Show, News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP.